Welcome to Alive to Thrive OT. I'm Tracy Schnabel.
And I'm Lauren Lyman.
And today we have a naturopathic doctor. It's very exciting. Again, just a little background on us. We're two occupational therapists that notice the gap in the healthcare system. Don't believe the hype that you have to have chronic disease or as you get older, you can't be healthy. We want to dispel those myths, and our purpose is to try to give people the best quality of life possible by educating them on a variety of different topics and giving them empowerment through education.
So, a little legal disclaimer first. All claims made on our podcast, videos, and websites are for informational purposes only. It's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, so always consult your doctor about diagnosing, treating, addressing any health concerns. We don't give out warranties or representations, and we are not responsible for any injury or loss from any viewing party, so please proceed at your own risk. And as always, if you have a medical emergency, please call 911. So welcome, Kirsten. We would like to thank you for joining us on our podcast today. So we do have some questions for Kirsten. We want to ask about naturopathic medicine and just give you guys a better understanding of what it is, what they do, and what their scope of practice looks like. So we'd like to first start off by you just telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so I'm owner and practitioner at Natural Intuitive Wellness, and basically I started when I was having my own health issues, and it was, first I was in a job that I absolutely hated, and I was completely miserable. I was a chemist at a wastewater treatment plant, and so a little bit career shift there, but I realized that I was unhappy and I needed to do something different. And someone mentioned this, and I thought, yeah, this sounds like really interesting and kind of follows along with my beliefs of natural living. And so, although I wasn't as natural as I am now, but it was, so yeah, and then it kind of all fell into place. I figured I would just apply to the school and just see how, if I got accepted, and so yeah, and there was a school that was close by, only like one of 6 schools, accredited schools. So I realized, okay, this is meant to be because, there's only 6 schools, and one of them in like right, the next town over or whatever. So, so yeah, it worked out well. And so, yeah, so I'm a naturopathic doctor, and, which is basically, essentially dealing with the symptoms. So you see the picture of symptoms, and you try to find the root cause. And we do that using the therapeutic order, which is basically the level of intervention and going up the therapeutic order to get the desired outcome, which would be health. And and so we try to do the lower force interventions to see and to get to cure first before using higher interventions like surgery or pharmaceuticals.
So could you give us an example maybe of like one diagnosis where what you would start with first and then how you would work up that ladder?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially how I work is I look at the foundation. So there's 7 ladders or steps, I guess you could say, levels. And the first level is reestablishing the basis for health. So, or creating the conditions for health, because sometimes they were never there. So, and that would just include, basic diet, sleep, your air, your breath, but also shelter, community, and love. Those are also very important. And I work with postpartum mothers that are struggling, and it's crazy how these fundamentals are actually missing postpartum. So obviously community is one that I think we can agree has changed over the decades, and we're lacking with that. There's not that village anymore. And then love. I mean, you'd be okay, why is there lacking love? And we can touch on that a little bit later about my philosophy and how I look at health. But yeah, so then after addressing these things, then the next level would be using like what we call the V's, the natural healing power of nature. So that would include homeopathy, hydrotherapy, acupuncture, the lower energetic healing modalities. And then we have basically correcting organ systems. So looking for certain supplements that have like a general mechanism of action that you're looking to get. So like magnesium, that covers a lot of different things that you might maybe you're deficient in. And then we go up to the next level 4, and that's structural integrity. So that would be any manipulations, that would be like massage or anything like that. And then we have level 5, that would be more specific. So using supplements, for example, magnesium for like muscle pain. So something that a targeted mechanism of action that you want. You can actually use, those are your natural alternative pharmaceuticals, I guess you could call it. So like using, desiccated thyroid or something versus obviously the synthetic thyroid medication or something like that. And then you have your pharmaceuticals at level 6, and then level 7 would be like surgery, your higher force intervention. So yeah, that's kind of the ladder. I treat basically within level 1 and level 2. And with that, you could do a lot of changes because essentially our foundations are just off. Mm-hmm. We're not in balance. So working on those levels can be really transformational. So, yeah.
Cool. So you kind of touched on this, but maybe if you could just clearly state it for everybody, how do you think naturopathic doctors differ from allopathic or our regular, typical Western medicine doctors?
Yeah, so most definitely. We have a different thought process. Most medical doctors look at a symptom picture and they have like a protocol to follow. Okay, this is the drug that you give when this happens, and then if that doesn't happen, then you give this or you do this thing or whatever. The way that a naturopathic doctor thinks is looking at the whole picture and seeing what is the center of gravity, what's the thing that's really all of this is revolving around, and trying to address that. The way that I think about medicine and the human body is I see that we are energetic beings. We are emotional beings. As a human person, we are emotional beings. So with that, I think our emotions and feelings are foundational. I think that they create the ailments, the physical ailments that we have in our life. When you look at, let's say, your gut and your immune system or even your hormones. So let's look at the gut first. You have your gut, and when you're not eating right, you're eating maybe a lot of sugar or whatever, you can feel depressed, you can feel anxiety with how you're eating, right? And the same thing with your immune system. Like, for example, hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, you can have symptoms of depression and anxiety with that. But when you look at it, when your emotions are, your emotions are tied intricately with that. So your gut, let's say you're feeling nervous. Sometimes you feel those butterflies in your stomach, right? You're getting physiological changes with your emotions. And childhood traumas, for example, are linked to Hashimoto's or autoimmune conditions. So, so really, it's the chicken or the egg, right? And my idea is that everything really starts from the emotions and feelings that you have. And when you have these blocks of energy, or you can't process your emotions efficiently and effectively, then that's when you start creating these conditions. And in a sense that they can be passed down. So you might have Hashimoto's, can be hereditary. There's a hereditary link. But if you think about it, there's a period of time in your life from 0 to 7 where you're just downloading information. And that information, it goes into your subconscious. So let's call these programs. Your programs are your tapes. And so when you're growing up and you have all this information that it's other people's belief systems that are being downloaded to your subconscious mind, and therefore you're taking on everyone else's belief system. So typically it's the family. And so that information then is getting passed down through the generations. And that's how I see genetics. And that's kind of along the lines of epigenetics, because you can change those. And so that's where I feel. So Hashimoto's, for example, is one of the conditions where it's like, okay, well, that was a childhood trauma, and that childhood trauma from that parent might be passed down into their children, and so then you're gonna get those autoimmune conditions that are there because of the trauma. And then the same thing with diabetes. I mean, if you look at diabetes, sometimes it's just the fact that the whole family eats similarly. It might not have anything to do with genetics, but it looks like a genetic condition because of family members having the same condition. And then, but really it's your surroundings. So if we can change those subconscious programs, then we can start changing the future and the health of the individual and bring transformation. So, yeah.
So how do you go about that? I mean, someone who's been ingrained generation after generation, how do you approach that? And how do you get somebody, I mean, it's like dieting in general. People are motivated to lose weight, but then when it comes to all the work and effort, it's really hard to sustain that.
Yeah. So, let me touch on, cognitive behavioral therapy, which basically addresses your thoughts that will change your behaviors, right? So you have, let's do CTFAR. That's a little acronym that I use. So C stands for circumstances. You are separate from your circumstances in the world, right? They happen to you. There's circumstances that happen in the world. They are not you. And you as a human being are automatically lovable, worthy, and capable. So regardless of the circumstances that happen to you, and regardless of the actions that you have done in the past, automatically you're capable, lovable, and worthy. So the circumstances that happen in your life, you then basically have thoughts around those circumstances. You are separate from your thoughts. You realize that because, okay, you're aware of having a thought. So you're thinking a thought and you can basically see, oh, I'm having this thought. Well, therefore you're not your thoughts, right? There's some other entity there. And your thoughts, create your feelings, right? So you have feelings around your thoughts, whether positive or negative, and then your feelings are what really manifest and create how you act in the world. And then obviously your actions create results, whether positive or negative. Okay, so you don't have any control over your circumstances, and you don't have any control over your results. So the issue is, okay, then you can control the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act, right? Well, you can kind of control the way you think, and you can kind of control the way you act. What you can really and definitely control how you feel. It takes a lot of practice, and it's very difficult. So, and you might think, okay, well, why can't you control the way you think? Positive thinking, right? People talk about just do positive thinking, mindfulness, and that sort of thing. So, but the issue is that when you're doing positive thinking, you're working on the conscious level and not on the subconscious level. So it's this small processor working against this huge processor because you're trying to change those subconscious programs that have been downloaded. And that just doesn't work, right? I mean, you could try so hard, and it's still important, I think, to put in the effort and to try to be in that frame of mind. So I think there's basically what I call energy psychology, and that's what I use, and that is basically to change the programs, so then that way you can actually change that mindset. So there's 3 ways of doing that, and so energy psychology is one way of changing the subconscious programs that are playing. Then you also have you can call it hypnosis. What I prefer is more of like meditation, so mindfulness and being in like a state of like being present and clearing your mind. So, and that kind of actually works on your brain waves, theta waves. So you have several different brain waves. So you have delta when you're asleep, you have theta when you're falling asleep, and when you're waking up. And theta is when your subconscious and it starts to take over the conscious brain. So that is when you can make the changes because you're in the subconscious mind. So you can play like audio files while you're falling asleep to start to change those programs. The issue with the hypnosis, meditation, or the audio files, they're great. I think they're awesome tools to have on a daily practice. I mean, I'm not familiar with hypnosis, but meditation or yoga. But that takes a long time. So the energy psychology is something that can address the subconscious programs in as little as 15 minutes. And so, that's great. You can start changing the way you think in 15 minutes. And then what will that bring you? That brings you emotional freedom, starts to change the way that your cells are actually vibrating, right? You're changing vibration of your body, and so then that can clear out some of those physical ailments and start to make huge progress. So
what is an example of an energy freedom technique?
So it's energy psychology, and there's lots out there. I use NET, so that's neuro-emotional technique, and it's basically just addressing your subconscious mind using muscle testing techniques, and it actually uses the meridian, or Chinese medicine, the meridian pulse points. So you're accessing, which emotion or feeling is associated with this blockage, essentially. And then I also do ancestral clearing. So that is working with more of the generational traumas. to kind of clear those, and it's essentially a way to forgive and move on from the past. And that's more breath work. It's not a muscle testing technique, but it is breath work, and it's kind of focusing, and it brings up things from the past. And with the NET, there's practitioners that do that and use that, and I tweaked it. I devised a different way of using it because I felt like I was getting improvement, but it wasn't what I wanted. So I did this myself because with my own postpartum depression and anxiety, I was like, I need something that's gonna be a cure. So I looked at it as, okay, how you start off with NET is it's typically something that's current, some issue that's in your daily life, or even a physical ailment. And for me, I was thinking about it like, okay, well, what about our core emotions? Like, if I'm not feeling love, or I'm not feeling worthy, like, let's just clear all of that out, or process all of that right from the bat, and then maybe we're clearing things that I didn't even know. And then I thought, okay, so I can do that for this lifetime, but what about past lives and past impressions on my soul? So I decided, okay, well, we're going to go even further and see if I can, do it from the very beginning, because in the technique, you look at an original event, but it's usually just for this lifetime. And I'm like, well, let's look for the original event in past lives as well. And with that, I actually found one of my lives, I committed suicide. Another life, I found out that my children were murdered. So with that, I've been taking those emotions throughout these lives, and hopefully, now they're cleared. So so then it brings like a major shift, and you can start having that feeling of transformation and living your fullest. So
Wow, yeah, we don't realize how much we're carrying around.
yes. I mean, if you look at it, the children these days, they have so much anxiety, so like they're depressed, and there's obviously contribution to our environment around us. Like EMFs are not good for ourselves. If you look at ourselves as like vibrational and energetic beings, which we are, and electrical, and then you're short-circuiting our system, but with the EMFs, or trying to add chemicals, or whatever it might be, and that's an issue. But I think part of that is this mindset of money, right, and in it to win it, or I'm kind of like survival of the fittest type feeling, rather than that community. So if we can start to change that mindset through people, then maybe these things around us wouldn't be such a burden on our lives. So yeah, that's kind of how I see our health and society. So
so I'm curious, through your experience and through your knowledge, what do you think is the most common root cause of all these conditions that we're dealing with these days, especially autoimmune disease, because that's affecting more than half of our population?
Yeah, so most definitely, again, I think it comes down to our emotions. When you think, so you have these programs downloaded, and they could be, I'm unworthy, I'm unloved, or I'm unhealthy, and you have what's called reticular activating system in your brain, and that's your brain's filter. So that is the way, because there's so much information in the world, and your brain has to filter it somehow. Otherwise it'd be overload. So when you look in the world, you see the things that confirm your subconscious beliefs, those programs. So if you look in the world and you've been told from 0 to 7 years old that you're unworthy, unloved, unhealthy, you will see everything that confirms those things. I'm unloved, okay, I'm unworthy, I'm unhealthy. And then, but when you start to change those, then you actually start to see the other things in your world that confirm I am loved, I am healthy, I am worthy. And so essentially, that's where I think any condition starts from, because it's been passed down. It's been, you live in these programs. These are limiting beliefs, right? You might be a teacher thinking like, oh, I can only make so much money a year, right? But that's a limiting belief. Who says that you can only make this much money in a year? What if you did other things and can increase your income, or you can, there's endless opportunities. And when we see and when we can unlock our abilities as human beings to basically make our lives what we want them to be, then, it's limitless. And I think there's so many things that, like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done, like the white picket fence, or, anything. You get that social mentality, and then you're thinking, oh, I have to stick in this like 9 to 5 job or whatever it might be. And so I think essentially all of that stuff, I mean, it all comes back to your emotions and those programs, because that's what you've been told, and that's what you believe. And and so when you can change that, it's amazing. So basically, not only is it your health that your emotions are tied to, but I think also your surroundings. And I think your surroundings, I mean, when you're living in a place where, okay, like, I don't, this house or something, I don't like this house, or, I don't like, this isn't bringing me joy, right? Well, when you start to change those things in your environment, you bring joy, and then you don't have these like physical ailments necessarily. So, I mean, it's all really tied in. So, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious, because it sounds like if emotions are really the root cause of a lot of problems, then do you refer out for someone to seek help with maybe like a psychologist or something, or are those things that you are in your scope of practice and you can address?
So we do get counseling in our education, and with the energy psychology that I do, that's something that I can help facilitate. It depends, I think, on the level of support someone needs. If it's more looking for the physical side of things, that's something that I can definitely do. But if someone is suicidal or anything like that, then that obviously needs conjunction. There's therapists out there that are open-minded, and I think it's still important. I really think therapy should be for everyone, because not only is it a place to talk, it's a place to get tools and coping mechanisms. And those are band-aids, but to an extent, but I think that they're important. It's important to have that space where someone can feel safe, and not obviously that someone would feel safe with me, but I it's more of a conjunction, just how like meditation and yoga would be great daily tools. I mean, this is just something that is another thing to help. Any support is great, and we really need to be taking care of ourselves. So, and especially, if someone's suicidal, we need the crisis help immediately. But I think where the transformation comes and leaps and bounds comes is from doing the energy psychology. So, because I've been in therapy myself, throughout the years in my life, and while talk therapy is great, I also just felt like, okay, well, I need tools. I need to figure out like what I can actually, and then also the mind shift change. The tools were great, but I also needed to change the way that my mind was working as well, and how I saw the world and my perspective. And so I think with the two together, it works really well, and it's important.
So how hard is that? I mean, I know we've noticed it's difficult to change your mind in a world that's thinking predominantly the opposite way as you.
Yes.
I mean, how hard is it to completely shift your focus in daily life?
It's very challenging. It's very challenging. If I was just to do just the positive thinking, I mean, it's a daily struggle, right? I can't, I have the negative thoughts that come in, and it's like, okay, and let's put those out, or, I mean, I try to bombard myself with the positive thinking. So I listen to podcasts. I listen to, I follow people on social media that are inspirational and give me those daily, like, bursts of information. Like, I have something that comes to me every morning that basically is like a little mini meditation or a mini affirmation. So yeah, and I think that, the more that you can be in that space, it gets easier. But think about it, you're maybe like, how you've lived, however many years on this planet, and so most of that has been negative information. Like, if we think the average person, their subconscious programs are 70% negative. And when you think about emotions, really emotions should be 50% positive and 50% negative, right? I mean, it's a balance. You have to have the negative with the positive. But if we're living in 70%, we're constantly out of balance. So yeah, so you're building that up, and then it can be very difficult if you're not changing those programs. But yeah, so like I said, I bombard myself with, things that will give me the daily reminder, and then, it gets easier. So
I never heard of like emotions, like the yin and yang of emotions, like negative being useful.
Yeah.
I know.
That was interesting.
It's funny that you say that, because so many people are like, oh, I need to be happy all the time, and I want to feel that joy, and that, that's valid, because we are living 70% in negativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's house burns down, you don't want to feel happy about that.
Right.
You feel sad for that person. So it's important to have those feelings. I mean, you can still be feeling positive, as in like, okay, like, let's figure out a solution, and at least you guys are safe. You can be positive on that aspect, but you're not going to be like, oh yay, I'm so happy your house burned down. That's not. It's not a normal reaction. So yeah, you do want to have that, like, that balance. I don't know. Anyway.
When someone comes to see you, or when you have a phone call with someone or conference, whatever, what does a typical session look like?
So there are 3 phases of care that I present to my clients, and the first one would be, and this is mainly geared toward, I'll just talk about postpartum mothers, because it's easier, I think, to talk about one demographic. But connection and clarity would be the first phase, and then mind shift, change, or mindset change would be the second phase, and then peace of mind would be the last phase. So in the first phase, you're getting that connection with another adult that you might not have, and support around that, because I think it's really important to have that community support. I needed that physical person in my house to help me when I was going through my own anxieties, and then I'd like to do basic lab work just to kind of rule out anything else, like, that might be addressed immediately. So we do basic blood work, and then I also like to do what's called an oats test and an organic acids test. And that is really great because you can basically see all of the metabolic processes with one urine sample. And so you're looking at, I had a client with Hashimoto's, and she was using, we were working with that, but there was still something, she wasn't making the progress that I wanted her to make. So we ran that test, and I found out a lot of it was mitochondrial issues. And so I think typically that could be missed, with a regular practitioner. So then.
Can you just explain for everyone what the mitochondria is in a cell?
Yes. Yeah. So mitochondrial is like your powerhouse. It's basically in every single cell of your body, and it's your ATP. It's your energy source. It's how you get energy to all your cells. So it's how you function. If you don't have them, you're not living. So So then, the next phase would be, do I hear a little baby? The next phase would be the mind shift change, and that's when we start doing, I like to use homeopathy, and then what's also called is biotherapeutic drainage. So those, which is a form of homeopathy, and those work then on that second level of the therapeutic ladder to kind of shift, and that addresses not only emotions, but it addresses like your whole being, essentially. And then we, move into, the more of like the subconscious, changing those subconscious programs and getting that mind shift. And then the third phase would basically be, maintenance or further continuing to have that transformation. And eventually, we want to get to a place where a mom can feel confident about her choices, feel joy with her children, and have that peace of mind.
So let's talk about more technicalities. So if someone were to switch over from an MD or a DO and start seeing a naturopathic doctor, would there be any parts of service that are missing? Maybe like prescription of medication, prescription of therapy. I know you said they do surgery. So is there anything that's lacking, I guess?
Yeah, so it depends on the state that you're in. Certain states have full prescribing rights, so that you'd most definitely be able to, get the medication that you're on through other naturopathic doctors. Not all naturopathic doctors obviously have prescribing rights if they're in a different state. So sometimes there still needs to be communication with your MD or endocrinologist or whoever a specialty doctor might be. Lab work can still be done. Like I do lab work. I am not technically allowed to do physically touch my clients. So, vitals or physical exams are, in an unlicensed state are not allowed, I guess. But I know other people that are comfortable doing that because there is no scope of practice. So if there's no scope, then kind of can do whatever. I choose to err on the side of caution. But in other licensed states, you are able to do physical exams. We're basically primary care physicians that just see your body, your being as a whole entity, and working with the natural cure of nature and of your body's intelligent healing processes to just help support it, really. I mean, you're doing the healing. So
do you think that naturopathic medicine could be more integrated into Western practice? Do you have like a vision for that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if that's my vision specifically, but for other naturopathic doctors, I think that that's really important. So, especially in like the psych wards or I mean, I do actually think about that. I'm like, man, homeopathy would be perfect in, the psychology, wings of hospitals or, wherever. And then, obviously oncology, I mean, that's huge. There was a professor at my institution that worked at Northwestern, and she was basically she was on call there, or a doctor there that consulted with the oncologist there, and so and she's, I mean, obviously she had to kind of work around the system a little bit, but she sees amazing transformation with people that she's working with, and I think it's really important to have that other option for people. I mean, when we talk about informed consent, it's kind of like if you're in the medical, conventional medical world, you're really only seeing one option or what they have to offer. And it's nice to really see, okay, these are all the options, and what can, like, even within naturopathic medicine, there are so many different practitioners that treat so differently, that everything is varied. And so, I mean, even if I am not like the right fit, there's other people that look at a condition a different way, and you can still make transformation with that. So, and honestly, for me, I think it kind of depends on how your body wants to be treated. So there's certain ways that you can get healing. And sometimes, with muscle testing technique, I basically will, sometimes if I don't know, I'll basically just ask the body, like, okay, do you want to be treated, with NET, or do you want to be treated with supplements, or, that kind of thing, and kind of figure out what's the best way. So, I definitely think, if we can do an integrative option around the world, I mean, that's really the ultimate goal, is to get people kind of thinking about their, what is possible. And if they want the surgery, that's fine. They can get the surgery,
right.
but
just giving them choices.
So at least they're aware, that there are
yeah,
other options.
exactly. Knowing their options, and I think that that's important. You want to know all the information before you make a choice, and so informed consent is important, I think, all around the board.
Yeah. And then, like Lauren was saying, like half of the people in this country have a chronic illness. There's so many people that are overweight. We have a really unhealthy relationship with food. Do you think that naturopathic medicine could be the answer to the healthcare crisis in America today?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when you're looking at food, I mean, that's an emotional unhealthy emotional relationship with food. And I think what often gets missed in conventional medicine is that mental health aspect.
Yes.
And so these things kind of get out of control. Naturopathic medicine looks at the underlying cause, and if we're not looking at that, we're just putting Band-Aids. And so, and that's not helpful. You're not making progress, really, and it's not going to change the state of health in the country or around the world. So I do think that it is the way of the future, and it's then just learning basically which alternative or which route you want to take. But definitely, because I think, acupuncturists and all those things are all great with, working in conjunction with health. So, yeah.
And then I wanted to just quickly say, like, you might have covered this already, but you were saying that you think love is such an important part of health, and you were talking about self-love, but if you could also talk about, like, interconnectedness and how that affects health. And definitely, so love, I think, all around. So when I say love, that's not necessarily that
that can mean self-love, obviously. But yes, love with your family, love with, friends, love with whoever, your children. And I think that when we have compassion and love for other beings, whether human or not, animals can, we're all energy. We're all part of the same source. And when you are putting those negative vibrations out, if you look at Dr. Emoto's work, he's the man who did the words with the water crystals, right? So when you're saying love and you're putting love out there, you're changing the vibration, you're changing like cells to create like these beautiful water crystals, right? And we're 60% water. Yes. And water has memory. So when you are, and so think about that. That was just an overnight experience. And he even blessed water, like water that was, polluted, and then blessing it. I mean, seeing the difference was like quite amazing.
And we do have, sorry, just to talk to the audience real quick, we do have pictures of those in our presentation, Humans as Electrical Beings, if you haven't already watched that video. So.
Oh, beautiful. Perfect. Yeah, so you can then see the differences. And with that, when we're putting out that vibration of love, like sometimes even just walking into a room, intentionally setting the room up for love, you can you can feel that shift. And so I think that it's important. I mean, because again, we are energetic, we are electrical. So putting that vibration and that frequency out, I think is important. And again, when you're putting then the negative out there, you feel that. I mean, if you're having a bad day and you're pouting around the house or whatever, you see other people around you be affected, right? And same thing, it spreads. So yeah, laughter spreads and anger spreads, and so being intentional, I think, and trying to feel that love and spread that love, and actually that's part of why I'm plant-based, because I want to spread that love. Like I don't want to take on those karmas or that negative energy of like contributing to death. So yeah, that's kind of, it goes across the board with humans, with animals, with anything that and then I think that also plays into gratitude as well. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people move through their life without being grateful for what they have. And when you can set intention and think daily, if not throughout the day, of the things that have brought you or have served you in some way, that can be really transformational. Like, for example, like even seeing, like I found a dead mouse in the backyard, and so we decided to bury it, my kids and and I was like, thank you for your time here in the world, because you served a purpose, and we appreciate you, and I'm just taking that time to basically show respect, and just, and so being thankful for that whole web of life. I mean, it's the circle of life, right? So you're all connected, and everything has a part. And I don't know if you've ever seen Butterfly Effect. There's also it's all tied together. So yeah.
And it's really interesting because you're saying the gratitude, and I took a class in college on the science of subjective well-being, and we read research that actually said that people, I think it was done in the United States, people ended up being happier if they read, or if they made a list of all the reasons why their life is better than somebody else's. They ended up being happier than the people who made a list of all the reasons why they should, like all the good things they have in their life and the things that they're grateful for. So I think that really plays into what you were saying, how that's how we were conditioned to think. We were conditioned that our happiness is based on our status and if we're doing better than other people, and that's how we live our lives. So then we work and we make money and we have material objects, and then it like feeds into this whole material world, and really it's like people are like, well, I want to be happy, I have to compare myself to other people because that's how we're programmed. And so I mean, how do you even start to unprogram that?
Yeah, so that would be through the energy psychology, and I think too, creating more of that community, because I think when you start working together in a community, you feel that, and you want to do more of that. I mean, when you see these disasters around the world, and when people come together and they work together, that is so beautiful. You get emotional seeing that, and you get emotional seeing that for a reason, because your body, your soul wants to do those things. Like, you are meant to be working together, and we have created in this society this like top dog sort of thing, like, you know, I got to be the best, the greatest, and it's just me. But when you work together, I mean, you see these millionaires, they're part of masterminds, right? And so these masterminds, it's people working together. Hey, I've done this, I've laid the groundwork, use what I've done, you know? So, and I think that that's important to think, because it's not like, hey, it's all for, you know, it's just one, you know, this one person gets it all, or, you know, but when you can work together, I mean, that's really when we can be making huge changes in the world and really making a difference. So
yeah, shifting your mindset from a position of lacking to a position of abundance. So
and I think too, you got to surround yourself with that. You know, you're the product of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, right? So you got to think about the people that you're around. You got to think about, okay, you know, let's create that community. When you're doing more of it, your brain likes repetition. Your brain likes to, when you fire certain neural pathways and you keep doing that, you're priming your brain, and you're going to keep doing those things, right? So, and I think when you do that, it's just going to, it'll help to continue to make that happen. And then the energy psychology, I think, is just something that that makes it happen even faster. You know, you can just get there in 15 minutes, and you know, it takes sessions, because it's kind of like an onion. You're pulling back the layers. Okay, like what have we, you know, which block do we have here, and which belief system isn't you know, congruent with us right now, and pulling those layers back. But when you can start to do that, then I mean, it's quite amazing. So I want people to be aware of the fact that we are these people that can do amazing things. You can do anything that you want, like literally, and putting your mind to that. And, you know, I mean, sometimes, you know, it's hard work. You gotta fail, right? You gotta fail and be okay with it and keep moving past that. But when when you kind of get to that place, then, I mean, there's so many things that people can do, and it's freeing when you tap into your natural abilities. Then you feel more confident, and you can actually, you can move through the world feeling like you're capable, and having joy, and feeling confident with the things that you're choosing to do, and going with, and being in alignment. I mean, that's really what it is being in alignment with the universe, and just kind of feeling at peace then, you know, so.
So if there's one thing that you would say you want people to take away from this, or one piece of advice, like one thing that you can do every day to just improve your life, what would you tell people?
One wish.
I mean, I know that it's more complicated than that, but I mean, if there's just, you know, people looking for something simple, I'm busy, I'm to this, I'm to that, and that, I mean, obviously it's going to take time to shift your focus, but if there's one thing that they can do today. Yeah,
so I might do too, but or either or. So I would say meditation. If you can do, like, I used to do like 2.5 hours of meditation before I had kids, right? That was amazing. Okay, obviously that doesn't happen anymore. But so meditation, and the more that you can do, the better, because then you're in that state of like zen and joy, and changing those programs. And then if you can do the audio files, like when you're falling asleep, which I plan to actually come out with some audio files within the next year, hopefully, so that people can listen to that when you're falling asleep and start changing those programs. And that's an easy thing to do, because you're, okay, I'm gonna fall asleep, let me just put this on, and okay, now we're good. So that's I think easier than to try to find time to carve out for meditation. But but sometimes it's a little bit challenging, like where do you start? So yeah.
Great, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah,
very
you're
informative.
welcome.
It's been really
Yeah.
nice. So hopefully we reach some people and we've helped you in some way, and reach out, try to find a naturopathic doctor if you feel like you need help with something that's not being addressed, if you need help bridging that gap that healthcare has left you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. It was quite a pleasure and lovely working with you too, and chatting and discussing, what naturopathic medicine is, and what it can do for people. So
and how can people find you? How do people find you?
So thank you. So you can go on Google or whatever search engine you have, and type in Natural Intuitive Wellness. That's either my website. You can do info@naturalintuitivewellness.com for my email, and I personally answer those emails. So so those would be the best ways to reach me at this point.
Great. And we'll put the link in the description too to your website, so people can just click.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you for existing. I really enjoy talking to you.
I really love what I do. I wish I could reach everyone in the world, because I just feel like people need love. People need it, and I want to give it.
So thank you everybody for joining us today and for listening. We do have Kirsten's page linked in the bottom in the description, so if you want to check out her website, go for it. Her email is there as well. And otherwise, we're just going to say thanks for joining us, and please, as always, like our video, subscribe to our channel, sign up for alerts, and visit us at www.facebook.com/LaurenandTracy.
And we are wishing you physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.